But then there was one time when my husband went back to United States. India for a wedding. He came back, and the load of fun they had, he was like, okay, it's fine. Let's just move back. And okay, then that was like the final thing. We were like, okay, we're moving back. And we decided, since my husband, he had his own business, it was in its, baby years. So he decided to stay back while I decided to move back with both the kids. So my son was about 6 years and my daughter was a year and a couple months old. And we took this decision.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Desi Return. Today I'm excited to have Preeti on our show. Preeti went to US, spent there for about 10 years before deciding to move back to India. She has been living in India for almost close to 5 years. Lot of insights and information that we can get, after spending 5 years in India, after spending a decade in US. So really looking forward to the show. With that, welcome Preeti to the show.
Thanks, Avinash. It's my pleasure, being here.
That's great. So Preeti, if you can share a bit background about yourself and why you went to US and the reason to move back to India, I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, sure. So I've been born and raised in Rajasthan. I'm from Udaipur city. I spent about 24 to 25 years in Udaipur completing my education. And then I also worked here for a few months until I got engaged and I got married and I had to fly off to United States with my husband. But yeah, I was raised in a very, big family where at a time we would have about, meals being cooked for at least 20, 25 people on an average, which was daily practice. So being raised a huge social circle, a huge family, of course, even the first shift to United States, it was always, there was always, a lack of something which was felt there. But yeah, it was the initial years when you get married, it's always like a golden period, you're enjoying this period, that's fine. But then, we had a first kid, and then along with having my first kid, I also started having a lot of health issues, and especially we could say like cervical and related to muscles and all. Uh, the it started getting a bit tough for me to manage. As we know, in United States, we've got to manage everything on our own, be it work, be it your health, be it kids, be it your work, the home, everything. So it started getting a bit challenging. And as the workload just kept increasing as your kids grow, as your life moves on, while the health started deteriorating, and it just started getting really tough to balance, the quality, the work life, everything. So, and then I had my second child, and with the second kid, the health issue like really skyrocketed. It went really bad to where, my daughter, when she was just born, she was hardly a few, kgs. And even with those like 2.5, 3 kgs, if I would take her in my hand, within seconds, my hand would be like entirely numb. So I would like just lose the feeling. I tried a lot of physical therapies, a lot of doctor visits there, but it wasn't working out as well as I thought and I needed, to balance her quality of life. Um, Started getting really challenging. And then it was always, we were always contemplating whether we should move back to India or we should stay here. Moving back to India, of course, it's, you're going to have a huge family support system, a lot of facilities in terms of helpers. You've got maids, you've got drivers. But then again, United States has its own, luxury, money. So both had their pros and cons, and it was always a hard decision, especially after spending like 10 years. It's just, you'll always be like, maybe what if I'm wrong. So, but then there was one time when my husband went back to United States. India for a wedding. He came back, and the load of fun they had, he was like, okay, it's fine. Let's just move back. And okay, then that was like the final thing. We were like, okay, we're moving back. And we decided, since my husband, he had his own business, it was in its, baby years. So he decided to stay back while I decided to move back with both the kids. So my son was about 6 years and my daughter was a year and a couple months old. And we took this decision, keeping in mind that what if the kids do not settle? What if my child has a hard time? What if I'm not able to settle? So we wanted to keep that window where my husband, while he was in United States, and I would just try out how it works out here. And then so finally the day came, we just left. And to be very honest, uh, even when I was just, it was completely like I'm packed up, I'm just leaving United States after living there for 10 years. I knew it was the right decision because on my way to the airport, there was not even a shred of regret. And honestly, that's exactly, I would put it in words. When I looked back, I was like, I'm not going to miss anything here. I was just looking forward to be in India. So that's when I was like, no, okay, it's the right decision. And just we came back here. Initial time, it was a bit hard. So yeah, I mean, I moved back to India and I was staying with my in-laws, and it's not an easy decision. It's not an easy thing when you've been 10 years in the United States. You change your entire personality and you come back here. It's hard for them also to accommodate with the new you. Plus it's hard for you also because you've seen a whole different life and you're trying to accommodate back here, which is like there's a huge difference, and it takes a while to get used to. Even for the kids, it took a while. But yeah, I mean, all in all, over time you learn how to accommodate, you learn how to adjust, you have to give and take. It's all about give and take. It's the life was hard there, it's going to have challenges here, but it's all about the priorities that you have. And being here allows a lot of good quality time and a lot of other things. But I mean, primarily, yes, the so I mean, that's the story of how we moved back here, why we moved back here. And you I
Yeah.
guess over to you, Avinash.
Great. I think, thanks a lot for that overview. Sounds like as a kid, you have grown up in this large family with, a lot of
Mhm.
people around you. There was some initial, challenges just to be by yourself with your husband. It's a little bit of a different environment. And then, I think after 10 years, I think the decision was made. I think the one wedding changed the entire dynamic. So if you can talk a little bit, for how long have you been thinking about moving back to India? What were some of the considerations, like uh, anything, the particular trigger for this incident? So I think you just like, yes, let's make a move, or was there some logical, like, okay, this is the plan? From, I think you kind of touched a little bit about on the career side, and I know if we don't adjust, like, so just want to peel it a little bit more if you can, to talk on that aspect, like, for how long have you been thinking about moving back to India, and why this, and then how did you approach it? Like, for how long have you been planning? Once you made a decision, is it like 6 months, 1 year? Now, once you made a decision, yes, let's move back. And then how did you approach it? I think that would be very helpful.
Sure, sure, Avinash. I guess right after I started, having a lot of health issues, especially after, the first kid, and it was worse at a time to a point where, like there were two phases, two times when it got really bad. So first time with my first child, after my first child, there was a time when I was like literally in, bed, medications and all, they weren't working really great. And I was always like, it's when you're always constantly in pain, when you're in suffering, you tend to become a lot more frustrated. You tend to become a lot more, angry all the time. The quality of life, your own mental health, it all starts, gradually deteriorating. And, even with the family and the relationships, everything, it starts getting hard because of the circumstances. It's not because you want to do it, it's just because of the circumstances. And that kind of started triggering the thought, maybe we just should move back to India. The parents were also getting old. So my dad, he also is a heart patient, and I always felt like I was close to him. I wanted to spend, it's a truth. I mean, it's a truth that, whatever limited time you have, I wanted to make sure, the left over time, I'm just going to spend with him, with my mom. So it was always on the back of the mind. Probably right after the first child, we kind of started thinking about it. But then it started kind of getting more momentum, especially after the second child, where I was like struggling with my physical health, with my mental health. Like I said, it kind of started spiraling me into depression, what we call PPD, postpartum depression. And then so just those were the kind of trigger points, and eventually we just made the decision, okay, we're going to move. And how we prepared for it was like we requested our parents to just come back here. So after, my daughter was about 2 months, I resumed my work. And I mean, certainly it was helpful to have them over. So we had our parents over, and we kind of sent like as much possible luggage back with them home. And then again, we started repacking with whatever leftover stuff we had. We can't take everything for sure, but we just packed, the best whatever we could. And, you know, it was easier to come here because we already had a home here. Like we didn't have to go search for places. And also, a lot of people told me that why are you moving to Udaipur? It's a very small city. You're in the United States. You should move to a metro, at least Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad. Please do not go to Udaipur. It's a small city. But this city, with the family, with the support system I have, it always had my heart. I was always very sure, that I want to move back here. It was always all my people, around me. Because if I'm in a different city, it's again the same whole story. I mean, I'm on my own again, right? So so the decision was easy. We knew we were going to move back here. We have a house here. So that was kind of, a big thing always, where to settle, how to settle. That was, a lot more clear. And then eventually, that's how gradually the leftover stuff, when my husband, he came back, he brought along with him, and we still have boxes lying around at friends' places. So probably when he's going to move back go back for visit next time, we're just gonna get, maybe a package or two again. But
Sure.
yeah, I mean, sort of everything is settled here now.
Great. So I think you mentioned this. So you kind of moved to the in-laws family. So you decided to go back to Udaipur. So just curious, I think I'm assuming you are working there, as you said. So
Yes.
on a career front, you want to take a break and then spend time. Just curious on that because especially
Yeah.
like, when you're choosing a place where to relocate to, this is also another aspect, right? Kids' education, your career, spouse's career, and so on. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your career transition, and you kind of gave an indication about your husband's. So definitely would be interested to know if you're open to share how he transitioned. I think, he spent some time, and then if you're still living in the same Udaipur, if so, how did the transition happen in the career front? So if you can touch a little bit about that, that would be very helpful on a career transition for you and for your spouse. Yeah.
Certainly, certainly. So, yeah, I mean, I worked there for about 10 years in the IT field itself. So, I was with HP, and then I switched to Humana. And from Humana, I switched to the state, cabinet projects. So, when I left, I was on a state, transportation cabinet project. And initially, I had to, quit, job. It was for the better of all of us. I mean, for the kids, for me. So, the first, 1.5 year, I really did not actually want to even go back to work. I wanted to focus first on my health. So I came back here. I started, once the kids were and we were a bit settled, I started yoga classes here. I started going myself for, healing or for the, better of my situation. And then gradually it caught up with me so much. I got so intrigued. I just went ahead and applied for a certification, program. I got trained and I got a certified, practitioner in that. I became a certified practitioner. So then I started, taking just classes on the side as a small thing. You've been into work always, so it's hard to just stay at home, not do anything productive. So that was just a small, change initially, how I incorporated these things in my life. And then after a couple of years, I guess once the kids were old enough to where now my daughter is, 4 years, I mean 5 years actually. So at that time when they start understanding a fair deal enough your situation, they can also easily see, okay, mom is working hard, dad is working hard. They kind of resonate. And then I now I currently run a cafe also here of my own, and it allows me a lot more flexibility compared to your 9 to 6 corporate jobs. And I've got a team who can handle, and then I can just pitch in whenever as and when needed. So it allows a lot better quality time with the kids, and a lot more time to focus on other things as well. And plus it also satisfies my need for being productive and not just staying at home kind of thing. So that's for my part. And I also take, as and when I consult for yoga therapy kind of things. Not really. I don't take classes as much, but especially where the healing part comes, where people struggle with mental health issues, anxiety issues. So I definitely do a consultation kind of thing for them just to help them out through those things. For my husband, like I mentioned previously, his company was in baby years when we moved back here. So he stayed back there for about 1.5, 2 years. He was supposed to come back here like 5, 6 months after I moved, but then COVID hit. He got stuck. It took him 2 years to move here, and I was here with my kids for like 2 years. It was a hard time, to be very honest. It was really hard. The kids were little, but I mean, just we made through it. And he came back here, and he owns a software business company. So, and it's the work is outsourced here in India itself. So it's easier to coordinate with the offshore work here. And he takes, his meetings on site, like with the US clients and his team there during the nighttime. It's a little bit challenging because, he has to work late in the night sometimes. But I mean, I guess then he gets free daytime. So we're just getting to it. We want to, figure out these years, and once we get settled, we're, we're trying, we're hoping we'll retire early and then just live a good life. Yeah. So that's about the career part and all here.
That's great. Sounds like both of you have transitioned from a professional jobs or like from a regular corporate world to an entrepreneur side.
Yes. Yes.
Especially congratulations to you. I think, you not only embrace yoga for healing, but also like, become a certified trainer to, support other people or to train others, as well as establishing, cafe and keeping yourself productive and, the flexibility. And your husband, I'm assuming the software development company is in Udaipur only itself, or
No,
okay.
no. So his company is based out of United States. Actually, he's got a partner in. So we've got an American who is partner. His company is actually based out of United States. The clients are from United
Yeah.
States. His work is outsourced to an Indian company here, which is based out of Udaipur.
Okay. Now that's
So
what.
yes, so that makes it easier for us.
Yeah, nice. So sounds like I think on a career front, it's all transition. So maybe now switching back a little bit, you mentioned, I think it took 2 years, which was a little bit hard, especially having, spouses separated and then with the young kids.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
yeah. So I don't know if there's anything that you can share, because that is not like some typical plan. I mean, but some people might be considering it, just the pro is to give the flexibility in case if something doesn't work out, you can go back, or there could be some other commitments that one spouse might have to wrap it up. From your perspective or from your experience, if there is anything that you can share, like as an insights, maybe better to do this or do that, or anything that you can share. Just curious, that would be helpful if somebody was thinking along those lines.
Yes. I mean, as far as transitioning, I think the decision that we took, where one spouse moves back here and the other stays back there, I think that worked out really well for us because it allowed us, time to think and, I can say assess the things around you, the environment, where you want to stay, is it going to work or not? And you had your option open. So that kind of really helped us out. It was just unfortunately it was the circumstances where he had to stay back, as he would have moved back earlier too. But I mean, I am a strong believer in just going with the flow. So it seems hard at that time when you're doing something which is different, which is, a change. But then once that's through, once you become successful, once you achieve what you're looking for, it sounds easier than it looked before. So I guess now it's much more easier. And of course, we look forward to trips back to United States. He goes there for work once in a while, but and I'm more excited now because I get to do a lot more shopping from there now, because I was bored once I was staying there. I was like, no, nothing more. But yeah, I mean, the kids are also more excited, to travel. We are certainly, planning to expose them, probably a couple, maybe months or a year down the lane. We're going to take them back there. My daughter is always curious, Mama, can you show me the house where I was born? And, why did you give it up to others? And I'm like, okay, we're going to take you there and show you. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the good things you can do is to first assess and to make up your mind first where to settle, how to settle. School wise, also, it's important. School is a very important aspect for us. For me, it was a lot more easier because I had, my siblings, their kids were already going to a school, and one of the renowned branches like Delhi Public School is pretty well known, So it had a branch here already. So we already had a mindset even of the school. The admission process was already taken care of by my parents. So it made things a lot more easier to use your support system here to get things prepped for you while you're preparing to come back here. And then, because then you're not struggling, at that point to, just get through things. You've got to get the child educated and get them into school. And it's a big deal. I mean, it's a big thing to
Yeah.
get your child in the right school and all. It's a big decision for us. But that was kind of a really, much sorted out. And then, once I stayed here, the kind of profession I'm in, I get to do a lot of events. I get to do with school work with schools. So once I found out, okay, no, I really like the school better after knowing their management, after knowing the team, I just switched my child to the school, to the board, whichever I liked. And since it was initial years of the kids, it's like once they're in a bigger class, it's hard. The transitions are difficult for the child because they're in a bigger class. It, we brought them here early in the earlier years. So kids are very, I think, what to say, I mean, versatile, or they're very resilient. I mean, that's the right word. So it is hard for them initially, but they get accommodated now.
Yeah.
So, so yes, I mean, he just switched to a different school now that, he's kind of used to the atmosphere, Indian kids, and, he enjoys playing around for 2 hours or 3 hours cricket, and is all the games, the gully cricket, the gully games that we've grown up seeing and playing, and those kind of experiences. So I think that's most of it. I mean,
Yeah. So if you can touch a little bit about the kids, right? I think you kind of covered the plan. On the kids side, you specifically mentioned about the curriculum a little bit. So when you
mhm,
initially, like what curriculum were you thinking? And then after you got used to working with some schools or seeing some things, like you mentioned that maybe switched. So especially for your elder one, who was, I think, maybe in the first grade when you moved. So
yeah.
if you can talk a little bit about that and the journey that they took, and then how well they adjusted, that would be, helpful.
Mhm. Yeah, sure. So when we moved back here, we moved to a CBSE board. Since all the the initial when we moved here, the decision to put them in a CBSE board was based on, since all the cousins are going there, he'd have at least some circle. He'll at least have some known faces, and it'll probably be easier for him to get used to here because he comes from a completely American culture. It's a huge change for him. So that was the reason we just put him upfront in the CBSE board. But then, as I observed him, through his studies, he seemed to be more practical, work oriented. He isn't a child who really likes a lot of theory and a lot of writing, which is typically your CBSE kind of syllabus curriculum. So we had a couple, IB board schools and Cambridge board schools here. So I explored those schools, and then I felt the Cambridge board was a lot more suitable to his needs, especially even if if you go to the bigger cities, they're now all transitioning towards the IBs and Cambridge boards. So keeping that in mind, it seemed like the future is sort of more better with the Cambridge and IB board. CBSE might be fine. This is my opinion. This is how I felt. Uh, Somebody else might have a different opinion. But since by 18 they can even choose whether they want to go to United States or they want to stay here. There's another option, and Cambridge gives them that ability, or IB gives them that ability where they can be more transition into the curriculum over there. So that's why that was the reason I just shifted him to Cambridge board. And honestly, my daughter was also initially from the start, day one, she was in the Cambridge only, and she really loved it. Like, I saw how it brought out the difference in her, how she was learning, how she was presenting things, how she was growing. So I was like satisfied. Okay, this is what where my child needs to be. And when the kids are in school, it's an important thing that you don't have the kids in different schools, because it's hard for the parents especially also because different exam times, different PTM times, everything is on a different, kind of thing. So it's hard to keep up with that. Rather, it's better to have a same school where you can have same, holiday pattern, same exam patterns. Everything is same. It's easier. They go together. So we moved both of them to the same school, and he's happy actually. He really likes it there, which kind of, like put the final seal. Okay, I made the right decision because he's happily going to the school. He likes it here, and that's it. I mean,
Okay, that's great. Maybe this is another point that you touched. Like I mean, moving to Udaipur, like maybe I'm just using like a tier two city. This is not like a big metro. So how the life has been? I think you've been living there for 5 years. As you mentioned, living in a different country would give a different perspective. The personalities would change. Your, the discussions that you're having with the like-minded people, those are things, right? I mean, or like some of the facilities, some of the amenities. So just curious, if people who are considering to move to a tier two city, any inputs, any suggestions, or any thoughts from your perspective that you can share?
sure, sure, sure. So, I mean, for me, the number one thing is it's all about your priority. So, if depending on what your priority is, you're going to have to give and take, a few things anywhere you're staying, whether it's United States, whether it's Udaipur. So, if I'm in United States, I certainly have the luxury, the cleanliness, the ease of amenities and everything, the ease of availability. Like I make a call and to 911, and there's like a police car, there's an ambulance, and everything here on time. It is possible here that you make a call and it takes you get stuck in traffic. Those are there are certainly it is under development, while US is a developed city, and especially even then this is a tier 2 city. But then Udaipur is now it is really growing. It has become a celebrity destination, kind of a wedding destination. So considering all of those things, since our economy, it seems like, it's growing actually, the improvements are coming in. Initially, when we came here, it was like, okay, my son used to tell me, ki, Mama, yaar, road per, why are there, cows moving and, just pooping around on the roads, and why are why is it so unsystematic, like how the way the cars travel and do all these things. So definitely it is, a change. It is much different. But like I said, it's about the priority that was not really important for me. What was more important was, so now if I also get my time here, like I get to, get that, what you can say, like a mental break kind of thing, where I can even give my kids the space. They can go to their nanny's house, to their daddy's house. They have their own space, I have my space. We both have a better life off here. We get to spend time with the parents, with our families. uh, we have a better quality of life here, considering so many affordable, helpers. The going back even to the, the extracurricular activities for the kids. So my son goes for chess, he goes for football. If I had to do the same thing up in United States, it would cost me a lot more compared to the personal training I can provide him here. I also have a separate, personal trainers for my daughter, and I can, enroll them in 2 or 3 different activities. And if you see money wise as well, there's a huge difference. So plus the ease also, where I can afford a driver who can send them everywhere without having too much, burden on me or my husband. We all can live our lives, but also we can be together as well. So that's kind of, which was more important for me. So we focused on making that better. And you know so you have to always adjust a little bit everywhere. It's always a give and take everywhere, anywhere you would stay. So even if I was in United States, the quality of life was terribly compromised for me especially, and I was not ready to take that. So I think I was more kind of inclined towards giving up on a little bit of luxury or amenities, which is fine by me. So
Yeah.
I mean, we were raised in a very like a middle class, very not a very high demanding kind of family. So it's fine, I mean, for us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Um, Maybe is there any topic that we haven't covered that you would like to bring up and share your thoughts on that?
Hmm. Not really that I can think of right now.
Okay. Yeah,
Probably come to me later. I'll drop you a message.
sure. Any thoughts for future return to India aspirants that you wanted to share?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think India is like really growing. Especially, I've seen a lot of inclination of people towards, establishing startups and all. And I'm actually actively involved in startup clubs with, mentors, with some really good people who are doing really good with their startups, who've got a really, even a lot of female entrepreneurs. And seems like we're on a, a growth track, on a better economy track. So actually the scope seems to be much better here. Even the learning curve, when you're in a developing phase, it's a lot more learning compared to when you just go into a developed product. Like when you're seeing something from scratch growing, you learn a lot of good and bad and lessons from failure and success and all of that, compared to you're handed over a developed and tested product and you're just using it. Okay, fine, there might be some shortcomings, but yeah, I mean, so yeah, I feel, uh, if you feel, I mean, you assess your pros and cons, you assess your priorities. If it feels, for some of our friends that we had, I mean, it was like they had a toxic, maybe social life here when they came back here. So that was not even an option for them. So their priority was having a better life, which was more kind of suitable in United States for them. So that was the priority for them, and that's why US would be a right decision for them. So you've got to assess your pros, your cons, your priorities, what you're really looking for, understand all of that, and also figure out where you're really trying to settle down and how it's going to be for the kids, what kind of support system you're going to have. That's really important when you're trying to settle down. Otherwise, again, you're going to end up in the same spiral of frustration and not being able to do things and having too much burden, mental burden, physical burden. So it's just try to get that clarity prior as much as you can, and then with that you can proceed, and then you come back here, you try. And to me, I would always regret not trying to move back here. I would have regretted not trying rather than, just, being afraid of failure or not being committed to something. I mean, I would always prefer trying and then deciding rather than just regretting, okay, I should have decided, maybe I should have, it would have been, those kind of things. So that was my perspective on this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. It's always the what's important for you at a given phase of the life and
Exactly.
decision. So I'm a firm believer in making a decision whether to stay or whether to move or instead of like let the life pass by, right? I think that's a critical
Mhm.
one, just make a decision and
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I mean, and it's normal. I mean, we all make mistakes. When you're taking a decision, you don't know if that's going to be right or wrong in future. But you have to make a decision. That's, I mean, that's as simple as you can say. It has to be a decision. You can't just leave it hanging, because you do not belong here and you do not belong there. You're just hanging in between. You're just always confused in dilemma, always, those kind of things. So just
yeah. That's great. I think that's all I have for now. And thank you very much for taking the time and sharing your journey and how the life has been. In a tier two city, especially for somebody who has been living here for almost 5 years in India. So really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your journey with us. Thanks.
thank you. It's been a pleasure. I mean, and hopefully if we can even inspire or help just maybe one or two people, that would be well worth of this time.
That's definitely, I think that's the goal of the channel is to capture these stories because there are certain stories that people resonate very well. Even if it's one or two
Yes.
people, that's much, worth it.
Very comforting. Like, sorry to interrupt, but when I even spoke to you, just knowing your thought process helps me confirm, okay, no, maybe even I made the right decision, because people are going to tell you that you made the wrong decision. You're thinking, you were unfair to the kids or whatever. I mean, you're going to hear 100 things from people. But when you hear, positive reinforcing kind of things, you kind of get a comfort, like, okay, no, maybe, I mean, somebody else has a similar experience, so you're not wrong.
Yeah, there is no right or wrong. I think
Exactly.
people have,
It's just all about your perspective, what works for you.
yes, exactly. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Preeti, again for your time and appreciate it.
Same here, same here. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you all for joining us on this insightful journey of Desi Return. If you enjoyed this episode and want to explore more stories and expert advice, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your thoughts and experiences. By the way, check out the links in the description below for our Facebook group and social media for updates and engaging discussions, as well as connecting with fellow Desi Returners. Thank you once again, and until next time, may your Desi Return journey be filled with joy, growth, and endless possibilities.